Georgia, came back up the river, crossed back into South Carolina to a National Guard training center, which was right along the river, and it was a beautiful site, but it was also a wooded area where we could conduct some field training exercises. Okay, Dick, if you're not ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. Go ahead.
Okay. Leaving home is never great. Remember those people? That's saying goodbye to my wife and kids at Springfield at the airport, and it's always a tough thing. They didn't have any idea what was ahead of their dad or them, and I didn't know either. But getting aboard ship, the USS Simon Bolivar Buckner, we headed across the waters. We went through a typhoon off Okinawa, came aboard in Okinawa, and there was a tomb there. Guess what that's shaped in? That's a Buddhist tomb. What does it tell us? That is shaped in the form of a woman's womb. It is a reminder of the fact that we come into this world and we leave this world. God gives us life. When our time is up, we leave. Well, this is the hospital at Buckner Bay in Okinawa. Little did we realize that some of our troops would become patients here shortly after they were hit in Vietnam. This is also the place where we, during the Second World War, a great battle of Bay was fought here, and of course the ship I was on with those troops was named after General Simon Bolivar Buckner, who died right here in this place where the hospital is built in his honor. We were aboard in Vietnam. We left half a shipload of Marines at Da Nang, came on down, came across, came on board at Vong Tau, and it wasn't long before we went from Saigon, which you see here, to a place called Long Ben, and Long Ben is the staging place for our unit. These are just some general shots, and as I told you, I'm going to move you along real fast. The countryside looks tranquil enough, but when you look around, you find that there are people out there who of course, don't necessarily love you. I recently listened to the audio book report by Oliver North on a book that he put out entitled Oliver North Returns to Vietnam. Returns to Vietnam. It would be interesting to go back, I suppose, and see the places where we have been. This is the picture along the way. Little kids don't wear diapers until they're trained. Now we're in Long Ben, which is just north of Saigon. And as you travel around the country, you see the people working the rice paddies. 1 minute they're your friend, the next minute they're shooting at you. But so are we, trying to do our mission. We were a part of the 11th Armored Cavalry. Little hands out, give me chop chop. And of course the rainbow to remind us that somewhere, hopefully, there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. This is the area that we cut out of the jungle and turned it into our base camp. Right, let me show you here. Right over in here is where our camp is, where our battalion is located. This is Mount Gia-Ray. Mount Gia-Ray up to the north, and I'll refer to that later. And we had a jungle trail, or a trail leading up there, which actually is almost like 4 miles by the way we finally went to get there. Right out in here in the southern part of our camp, we didn't realize until after we'd been there for 9 months, there was a whole regiment of BC dug in under. And the only way we found out about them is that they were tunneling in to come in under our base camp. And then, of course, we were able to clear the area. We were being hit almost every week. There was some going on where they would create a tough situation for us. Moving into the jungle. of those not easy. As you can take a look at our shirts, we're soaking wet. I had to build up our sandbags for our own defense. This is the little hooch where I spent my time, and that was home sweet home. That little bunker to the back of me there, called the Home of the Brave. I spent many time in there during our mortars, fights, and things that were going on. We'd roll in there for safety until we got out and got about our mission. My task was, by and large, spent traveling around. I spent a lot of time in the air, going from one place to another because we had units scattered all over the place. This is on the top of Mount Giore. Now, this is an area up here that we had opened up and built a communications link, and it was at the site where Ho Chi Minh had his command post during the time that they were fighting the French. There's the chopper sitting there, and just to the other side of it is Ho Chi Minh's command post, and I would hold services in that for the small squad of people we kept up there. All that area outside that brown is DC territory. You can't believe the problems we had up here and down below the mountain at a quarry site where we had posts. This is a picture of the Sergeant, now Sergeant, retired Sergeant Major Mason, Harold Mason. He was wounded one night in one of our mortar attacks, airlifted to the state. At our first reunion at Fort Campbell, I presented him a fragment of the mortar that had brought him down and severely wounded him. I had gone in and dug it, and I had it in my desk here, kept it for years, and when we had the reunion, he came, and I had it in a plaque for him and presented him with a mortar round. One piece that didn't hit him. Just one of those things. This is up on a place where we had built a camp just off the Cambodian border in an airstrip. This camp was a camp. It's just a fortress is what we built. The Conex containers, as you see them covered over, were piled with dirt, and they were machine gun nests. And this camp post was overrun by the VC, and men all killed out by the VC. While we were there, we were under constant harassment. One night, not far from where I'm standing right here, I had baptism of Sergeant Howard, who is now deceased. He died of cancer a few years ago. But while we were having a baptism, we had a mortar barrage. And we had to clear the area. And of course, keep moving. This is the mess hall at the foot of Mount Giore. I asked Tim Call, Pastor Call's son, who came to that unit I served right after I left. He saw my still on the tent. And I asked him, what about the mess hall at the foot of Mount Giore? He said, one day a VC ran through this mess hall, dropped a satchel charge, and it is all blown up. This was all destroyed. This is when I was with the Australians at a Fort C operation. And this was the first joint U.S.-Australian combat operation, pushing from, well, the south and east of Saigon, pushing up to the South China Sea. And our base camp chapel. By and large, this is a picture of what most of my services were like, except the little altar kit which we have and which we use here in the church. The chalices that we use as backup chalices on Sunday morning are from my field kit. This is with the Australians. This is out the back flap of my tent, looking at our command center. And of course, there's my buddy, Doc Stewart. All kinds of temptations over there. We tried to tie in with the local churches. It was my task to work with the local religious leaders, the priests, and so forth. We took the bill out of one bell tower and put them in the other bell tower, and we got their cooperation on other things. This was the Australian chapel at Berea. The interior of it. This is the South Vietnamese Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Some of that is referred to in Nellie North's book, and he refers to the fact that all those who were South Vietnamese that died in the course of action are now totally unrecognized. But the North Vietnamese, the Viet Cong as we say, they are now the heroes over there. I was also responsible for Jewish work. And the guy in the far back on the right, Dr. Harvey Slater, now in Pennsylvania, was Jewish. That was a big help. And so I could, through his help, pull a minion together. You have to have 10 Jewish people in order to have a Jewish service. So I'd get them together, and then, of course, after I turn it over to them, they conduct their own service, and I'd get the cake ready for a party afterwards. This is in front of our altar in the maintenance tent, which we call our base camp chapel. This is our base camp as it developed. Now, my good friend Jed Brown, who was a captain with me, he was a company commander at the time. Jed is now a general at Penn. Was back to Vietnam about 2.5 or so years ago. He was able to get around the country on the assignment that he had. I said, did you get back to Black Horse Base Camp? And he said, yes. I was back now. And I said, what remains of all that we did there? He said, absolutely nothing. It's overgrown with jungle today. The Vietnamese just simply let everything that was American go. Christmas time, May time, and of course, chow time, and it's always a good time to have a service in the field. This was at a base camp chapel. And my Lutheran assistant, Fontaine, who's now a semi-truck driver, living in, of course he's a Minnesota man. I would imagine that he appreciates that. I'll tell you an interesting story about my Jeep. Two of our got drunk on New Year's and stole my Jeep. They took the cross off the front. You see the cross there. It was a brass cross. I still have it as a memento from the battalion. And they took off this long band. Of course, with that Jeep, they could pull in anywhere, get gas, and they could, of course, eat anywhere. There was no problem with food. But they weren't interested in food and gas. They were interested in getting drunk. So they took care of themselves in Long Band, went down to Saigon, and really got drunk and got so much spirit that they decided to go to Cambodia. Well, anyway, they took off for Cambodia, got all the way up to the border, turned around, and were halfway back to Tay Ninh when they got hit by an ambush. And my Jeep was consequently shot out. All the tires were shot out. Spare tire was shot out, but fortunately for them, they knew enough to keep their foot on the gas and keep things going. One round went through between the guy's legs, came right on up into the dashboard. These guys came off unscathed. And of course, after all the noise of the action, some of our military people jumped in who were nearby and fought off the ambush, and I get a phone call saying, hey, Chaplain, we got your Jeep, we're going to send it back by Chinook. And so we sent a lowboy up to a nearby little airstrip we had, and here comes my Jeep dangling on a cable, and they set it down, and we got it. This is after all that action. That Jeep is still going. It's the back and the other side that was all shot up. This side isn't too bad. But anyway, LaFontaine's a good old Lutheran boy. He was good. My job was by and large pacifying a lot of the people, giving out all kinds of things. I had school books, paper, pencils, Crayolas, chalk, candy, just all kinds of different clothing. And Lutheran groups here in the United States were made aware of this. They sent me stuff, and it was a big help. This is another group that I was giving stuff to. And I gave a Bible to this South Vietnamese officer. By the way, the gentleman that you see to the left is now a retired colonel. He is Pete, Al Richmond. When I tried to locate this man for our reunion, had a lot of difficulty. Finally got word that he was in Fairbanks, Alaska. So I got on the phone, called Information Fairbanks, asked if they had an Alan Richmond listed, and they said yeah, and they gave me the number, called up, his wife answered. And when I introduced myself, she said, oh, you're the guy. And I said, what do you mean I'm the guy? She said, well, it's like this. She said, you know, when you were with the battalion, you got my husband licensed as an ordained Episcopal reader. I did. I had him helping with services. When I wasn't at the base camp, he would lead the General Protestant service and also the Lutheran talk about unionism, Episcopal service. The Episcopalians believed in the sacrament the same as we do, so I put the two together and had him conduct that special service in my absence. And he did a beautiful job. Well, anyway, when he retired from the Army, he went to the seminary. He's an Episcopal priest today. So he's a great guy. There's Al Richmond on the right in my conics. That was my goodie closet. I had all kinds of things in there. All right, giving out candy while Doc is inside looking after some of these people. We came in, we shot them up, and then all of a sudden we lined them up and tried to help them. This is one of the sad ironies of war. These are little striker kids. We paid them 2 bits a day to help us. This was up off the Cambodian border back at that place. And the next day, after they left us, they turned around and find them. We'd shoot them, you know. They were part of the BC crowd that was trying to get us. We chased them back to the Cambodian border one night, or every night when they hit us. And then one night we were able to divert a B-52, and a whole bunch of them lost their lives before they got to the Cambodian border. But normally under Johnson playing general as well as president, he was playing games over there all the time, and we had so many limitations. It was absolutely just one of our young lieutenants, another friend. This, of course, was one of the Australians. We loaded his body on a stretcher and a poncho. One of his countrymen told me, he said, well, the bloke didn't make it. Well, he didn't. The bloke didn't make it. It was my job to pick up the pieces and move the bodies back to the great registration. This was our little hospital at the base camp, and we were very fortunate to have it. It was the receiving place for wounded. Right after they were hit, this is a flap, a chopper comes in, they kill the wounded and or the dead, and I can remember being in this spot many times with wounded coming in. My tent was, by the way, from here to the garage away from this landing pad, so I was right there. I can remember bodies of many being lined up here on the ground. Sometimes there might be 20, 25 or more bodies, all charred, of course dead, and we would have to go through and identify and do what we could. This is the receiving station. You might as well know what it looks like in that hospital. It's not a pleasant sight. I never forget the words of one who said to me as they were taking him into the surgery, which is right here, they said, "Chap, I don't want to die," and he died in this room. This little fella, well, he had a father who was a province chief, and he was killed. And this little boy was injured in the accident. This little girl was also injured in the action that took place in another spot. This little baby was held by its mother. In one arm she held the baby, in the other arm she had a Russian recoilless automatic rifle, and she was shooting at our people, and we killed her, and here I got the baby. And we are in the hospital, and from here we moved the infant to Saigon. After we stabilized the condition of the wounded, we put them back on a chopper and shipped them to Long Beach. This guy's name is G. Colonel Richmond is speaking with him here. You see his hands are all taped up. I've got to send him a copy of the picture. About a month ago, just before I went out to Fort Bragg, thanks to our local system, we were able to find him in Monroe, Louisiana. He is 100% disabled today. G won a Bronze Star in Operation Junction City. He was an excellent mechanic. The night when he was getting his uniform ready to go back to the States, we had some replacements in. I hate to tell you this, Rod, they came from Puerto Rico. They were some wild and woolly boys, and it could have been from any place. Anyway, they were cocky, and they took the powder out of a hand grenade, and during the day, put it back under a sandbag. That night, they got the drinking and carrying on. They grenade out, pulled the pin, and threw it at him. He went to knock it down, but it went off because you see there's a charge inside the hand grenade to ignite the main charge. And it was just a short distance from my tent. I heard the explosion, and I ran. Steward was right with me, and we got my Jeep and picked him up, put him in my Jeep, and as I literally had to carry that hulk of a guy into that emergency room or operating area there at the hospital across the street, he kept saying to me, "Old chap, why? Why?" Today, all he has on the end of his hands are, I think he said, a thumb on one hand and a crooked small finger on the other hand. The rest are gone. On the other hand, just a few stubs. So he has also had fragments in his chest, in his abdomen, and in his arms. He told me the other day that when I talked to him, when he got on the chopper to be flown into Saigon, he looked at the guy who was on a stretcher next to him, and that guy was offering him all kinds of comfort. He couldn't understand it. And he finally got up and he looked over, and the other fella had no arms and no legs. He said, and here this guy was comforting me. He was airlifted from Saigon to the Philippines to Japan, and from there back to the States. When he was discharged after his condition was stabilized to the VA, he was retrained. He got a job with Caterpillar. His wife, who he was married to at the time, stayed with him. They have some children now, but he has since had a mental breakdown. He's no longer employed. He's 100% disabled. We hope to see him this summer at Fort Bragg. This fella and another fella were very close to me, like, I mean, from here to that building right over there, the West Wing, and I was conducting a service at Swan Lock. It was their intent to blow us up, but unfortunate for them, fortunate for us, they crossed the wires and they were killed. As I looked over this body, I couldn't help but ask, I wonder if this fellow knew why he died. And of course, good news is you get to leave that place. These time, I had several trips out of Vietnam on Italian business, at another time for a Lutheran conference in Tokyo, but this time I was on my way to Hong Kong to meet that dear woman I married, or no woman who stayed married to me in spite of me. That I was with was my friend Dick Hundred on the right, and his wife Bev and Dee came over. Dick, by the way, after our last reunion, I spent time with him, and Jim, you and I have spent time with Dick and Bev out at Norfolk when we were there for a meeting, and then he came to the reunion, and about a week or two later, he died of a heart attack. I've been running through these real fast, and I will show you just a couple more, and then we're done. Hey, she's going to kill me. riding that thing, did we? This generation. But this was a cute little. Those are yours. You got that. We were up on the top of the hill here, overlooking Kowloon and Bay. And then it's back to business at hand. This is pretty much the uniform of the day over there. Flak jacket as you're going around. It's heavy, heavy. When you ride in the chopper, you sit on it. Chaplains are not supposed to carry weapons. We are relieved of that by Geneva Convention, but I'm going to tell you something. Chaplains were not taken prisoner in Vietnam. We were issued weapons if we chose to receive them. I took the M14 and a shotgun. I carried my Jeep. Shotgun for close order action and the M14 because I had more accuracy with it than the M60. So much for that. And another occasion when I left Vietnam, I was on my way to Okinawa for some battalion business, but I was on my way to Japan. We had trouble with the C-130, and we diverted to the Philippines, and that's my wife's uncle. That's her uncle. He was the head of electrical maintenance at Clark Field, which now you know is closed. Japan, we tried the cherry blossoms there, and of course, their Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, the Temple of the New Buddhism, of course they then bow and they do. Back to Vietnam, we had an interesting thing happen. Sharon Singstock, whom I had been acquainted with back up in Wisconsin, was runner-up Miss America, a student at Valparaiso University. She and Miss America came through, so knowing Sharon, I had her over to the battalion. That's out in front of my battalion chapel. We had a theater we had built there on the post, and you can see me over there on the far end dancing with Miss America. Much to the envy of the guys out front, I'll tell you that. These are the 3 battalion commanders that I served with, and absolutely love and respect these men. On the left is Colonel Joe Jensen, a very, very dear friend whom we look forward to seeing this summer. He is now retired in Alexandria, Virginia. Charlie Roberts in the center, retired colonel. He is now the head of the Oakland Bay terminal, the large Oakland Bay harbor. He is the harbor master for it all. He was the chief engineer for it, then he retired and they made him the harbor master. And then, of course, I've already told you about Colonel Richmond on the right. We finally wrapped it up, and of course, all the day of glory and back home, and let me tell you, this is about the happiest moment in my life. Yeah. When we were doing things on the field training exercise, we had a chaplain that I was working with, the current chaplain, Wackerhagen. Sounds like a Lutheran, but he's not. He's a Baptist. And he is one fantastic fellow. He was in the service as a boy who was told, you either go to the service or you go to jail. He was into drugs. He was in the service and spent his time as a private. He was a part of a tank outfit down at Fort Hood, Texas. Dan was one of those kids that you couldn't tell anything, and he's the one who tells it just like it is. After that, he got out of the service and went on to college. And after college, he was then in ROTC able to get back into the service, and he came in as an officer. And he said, I wasn't all that great. He said, now he said I was a tank commander. Big deal. And he pulled his time in the service, during which time he got married. Things started to settle down. Does that sound familiar? He started to settle down. He said after he finished, he said, I'm getting out of the service. He made a decision to get out and go to the seminary. When he finished the seminary, he decided to come back in the service as a chaplain. I'm going to tell you something. He is one of the best chaplains I ever encountered. And he stand there and look those soldiers in the eye, and he can tell it like it is. He doesn't mince any words. He really knows what they're coming from. Our leadership seminar was directed toward NCOs, and it was very interesting. And one of the NCOs in our group was named Stilgenbauer. He is, I believe, the son of Paul Stilgenbauer, who was an NCO when I was in the battalion. Generational, right? And by the way, at the military ball, when I first got there, they happened to have a military ball. What a deal, to go from military ball to the field. But anyway, that night I met Frank Edwards, a chief warrant officer who was a sergeant in battalion maintenance when I was with the battalion. He managed to come up through the ranks, become an officer, and every time they want to transfer him, because everybody wants Frank Edwards, he'd say, so they'd leave with the battalion. He's still with the battalion. He is a black fella, just one super nice person. His wife was there. I got to meet her that night, and we'll get to see him again this summer. We're out there. It's really an interesting experience to serve as president of our association for the 27th, to try and get in touch with all these people that we've served with over the years, and keep there and try to provide a link with the past. I can appreciate a whole lot what Oliver North has put into this little tape. Anybody here serve in Vietnam? Have you? Okay, I'm going to share it with some of those who have. I think it's a whole new perspective, and as he will be quick to point out in that tape, as a result of that experience, we have all grown. Now, there's a lot I haven't told you as to details that we went into as far as combat is concerned, and I don't think we need to get into those details. And I shared, of course, with those people. But the point I'm trying to make is that a group such as we now have in the military has to make moral decisions, and they have to make those decisions under rather difficult circumstances, and it's not easy. The decision that our fellows made, and we had an actual scenario set up for them. Here you got a kid shooting at him. What are you going to do with this kid? That kid is standing between you and the accomplishing of your mission. It means you're going to kill the kid. And that's the harsh reality of war. What do you do with a mother who's got that baby in her arms and shooting at you? Our men made the decision to take her out. It's a tough decision to make. There are many other decisions which cover the gamut of morality, and we have to think of those terms too. It was a great experience. I was glad I got to go back and to share with the guys and to learn from them. I think it's an interesting thing to see that these fellas that are in the military today are really no different than we were when we were that age. Just a different time, different circumstances. Any questions? Huh? 66 and 67. I had joined the battalion when I was at Fort Campbell, went into the military at Campbell and was assigned to 101st Airborne. And while I was with the Airborne, I went through jump school at Fort Benning and did all those other things. And then I was assigned to this battalion, which they were then getting ready to go overseas. And so I spent, I bet a good year and a half with the battalion itself.
So
when I came back,
you came to Salem right after that.
No, I came back to the States and again assigned to the 101st Airborne. I had asked for Fort Lewis, Washington, Presidio, Fort Carson, all those other places. They sent me back to Fort Campbell. Typical military. Assigned me to the 101st Airborne, which they were then putting on orders for Vietnam, the last of the regiment to go. So I was non-deployable. So I took the hospital, and I'm so glad I did. We were getting wounded. 3, 4, 5 days after they were hitting Vietnam, we went from a 200-bed hospital to about 1,800 bed patients. And then we came to Salem after that. Okay? will close on time. Boy, that was fast. Bless us, O Lord, and give us the confidence that we do live at a time and in a place where we can enjoy freedom and peace. Help us to appreciate these blessings. Help us also to realize that the freedom we enjoy has been paid for with the lives of many people whose lives were either taken or severely curtailed. We ask you, Lord, to bless them and those who survive. Keep us all together, we pray, in your love. Amen.
You think what?
Whatever, though, pretty good. This is a zoom mic. It only goes up to 30 feet.
Zoom mic?
And then my other camera got some Velcro.
How does zoom mic work?
Oh, it just, it won't zoom, but it
Just picks up.
you got feet away then. This is closer.
Let's watch after